A bullpen battle is brewing for the Yankees. Anthony Volpe provides an update on his health, and a Yankees top prospect is slated to take a very important start in the World Baseball Classic later today. We'll talk about all of that and more right here on Fireside Yankees. My name is Ryan Garcia. You guys can check out my work on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, and of course this YouTube page. We've got great social media work from our social teams. You can check out my written work on empiresportsmedia.com. And without further ado, let's just jump straight into today's video, and let's start by talking about the bullpen battle that is brewing. Jake Bird, Brent Hedrick, Cade Winquist, all some of the key names in this bullpen battle. Let's start by talking about Jake Bird, who I have been really impressed by. He had a stinker in Washington, or I guess at Washington Nationals, not necessarily pitching in Washington, D.C., but rather in Tampa, or Florida, excuse me. He did not look particularly sharp in that outing, but I think overall in spring training, he has been really excellent. An 83% ground ball rate, a strikeout to walk rate of 30%, the cutter, the sinker, the sweeper, the curveball, everything looks the way it should. Good velocity, good movement. I've been really impressed with his command. He's been attacking the zone consistently. I also believe that Bird has a good feel for spinning the ball east-west and has maintained that. But with that cutter, it gives him something in between those two pitches. Oftentimes, what you see with guys who have big sinkers and sweepers is that hitters can kind of tell what's going to come to them out of hand. So if we think about the plate and we split the plate in two, it's very easy to do that when somebody only has a sinker and a sweeper. And if you have something that sits kind of in the middle, instead of being able to split the zone in two, you've got to kind of take into account anything that's coming straight at you with spin. That could be a cutter, it could be a sweeper, and suddenly you've got to start thinking about what pitch is actually approaching the plate. He's got a very funky arm angle, which creates nasty movement on the sweeper, nasty movement on the sinker. He's got a really nice curveball to help him against lefties. Overall, I'm really positive on Jake Bird going into the 2026 season. I imagine that the Yankees are going to put him on the roster if he continues to have a strong spring. I understand that he has a minor league option, but it would be very weird for the team to trade two top 30 prospects for him at deadline, and after a strong spring training, not even put him on their major league roster going into opening day. Just feels a little bit weird. That's in my opinion. I could be wrong. I'd love to know what you guys think in the comment section below. But yeah, I think Jake Bird has been one of the biggest positives in camp for the Yankees. I think his stuff is gross. I'm very happy that his cutter looks sharp, because I think that's the missing piece. Last year, he had a 5.53 ERA. He also had a 3.91 FIP, a 3.58 expected FIP, a 3.84 expected ERA. Those are the numbers the Yankees are looking at and going, hey, this guy was a sub-4 ERA reliever last year when looking at his true talent level. Make a couple of adjustments, make a couple of improvements, and suddenly you've got a very viable bullpen weapon right in the middle of the mix who can bring swings and misses, bring this big-time slider, and make a big impact on a bullpen that has a lot of question marks surrounding it. Let's move on to Brent Hedrick here, who has absolutely blown me away with his brand new sinker, a pitch that he's needed because lefties absolutely crushed him last year. They slugged .622 against the left-hander, but even last year with those flaws, with those warts, Hedrick was a straight-up good relief pitcher for the New York Yankees. He was productive. He had a very high strikeout rate. He had a 32.6% strikeout rate last year, a 3.13 ERA. FIP was high, 3.83, but still above average, and the expected FIP, 3.25, suggested that the FIP was elevated, that he shouldn't have given up as many home runs as he did, and the expected ERA, 3.11, suggests, hey, despite the quality of contact allowed, you should have had a low 3 ERA. Based on what you did last year, your ERA should have been in the low threes. Wasn't lucky, wasn't fortunate, but rather a guy who deserved to pitch the way he did. And if you look at the context-dependent stats, something like win probability added, which factors in, hey, what type of situations are you pitching in? Are you just pitching well in blowouts and then coughing it up late in games? He had a positive win probability added for the Yankees, meaning that he helped the team more than he hurt the team. He only appeared in 17 games last year, but I thought when he pitched, he looked awesome. He had a whiff rate of over 30%. And with this sinker, I guess it's more of a two-seamer, but it adds a new wrinkle to the mix. His fastball is about a mile per hour harder than where it was last year. His slider is still really good. The one thing I want to see from Hedrick, a better splitter. The splitter hasn't looked as good as it did last year. Hasn't thrown it as much as he did last year. I'm not sure if he's ditching that pitch. I'm not sure if he's just not comfortable throwing it just yet, but do want to see that pitch a little more in spring training. but the advent of this sinker, definitely a huge plus for him. He gets tons of extension. He gets tons of ride on his four-seamer, gets a good amount of lateral movement on the sinker, and that gyro tight bullet slider. Good drop. I like Brent Hedrick. I think he's awesome. Thought he's had a really, really productive camp, and this is an opportunity for him to make the big league team. Unfortunately for him, he does have a minor league option, and unlike Jake Bird, there isn't this investment the organization has put into him that would kind of force them to go, hey, we have to see what he is early on. We have to know if our investment was worth it. They claimed him off waivers last year. He doesn't have a lot of service time accumulated. He has less than a year, so the Yankees still have 6 more years of control of this guy. There's really no need for them to rush this thing. If they feel like they can put somebody else on the roster, then they're not gonna put him in the major league team. They'll put him in AAA and just kind of let him come up when injuries arise. And look, between now and opening day, there's enough time for a rotation injury to happen that pushes Yarbrough into the rotation and pushes Hedrick into the bullpen. It's just a situation where the Yankees are going to have a difficult decision to make, and I don't know if you can say you're bringing your best 26 guys if Brent Hedrick isn't in that bullpen. That's just my opinion on it. I thought last year he was one of their 8 best relievers. You subtract Luke Weaver, you subtract Devin Williams, that's 2 open spots in that top 8. I think Hedrick's clearly, if not already last year, definitely this year, one of their 8 best relievers on that 40-man roster. Again, time will tell. Maybe he has a bad spring. Maybe he gets hurt. Maybe the velocity fluctuates again. But from everything we've seen early on, from the crispness of the fastball, from the way that he's responded well after outings, from the way that he's added a sinker to help him deal with left-handed batters who, again, got to him last year, I think this is a guy whose arrow is up, and the Yankees should ride that wave. One of the guys fighting for this spot who has an advantage going into camp but hasn't really taken advantage of it is Cade Winquist. Now, Cade Winquist, I was very high on going into spring training. The fastball velocity that we saw as a minor leaguer has not been there so far in his first few outings. Definitely not helping his own case, and while he does not have minor league options, the Yankees would have to send him back to the Cardinals if they don't take him out of camp. If he's not pitching well, and if he's not going to pitch well, then there's no reason for them to burn that roster spot on Winquist and not use one of Hedrick or Bird instead. Again, with Winquist, there's a chance the Yankees just say, hey, we like this stuff. We understand the spring training results weren't great, but we think this is a guy who's greater than what the spring training numbers would indicate. Then they're going to carry him. I mean, look, Fernando Cruz last year had an awful, awful spring training, was just terrible, especially in the beginning of that spring training run, and he was one of the Yankees' best relievers. He was awesome for the team last year, but I'm not exactly sure this is the same situation here with Winquist. He doesn't have that standout pitch the same way that Cruz did. The fastball velocity isn't where it should be. I was expecting him to sit much, much harder with his fastball. Hasn't really happened for him in spring training to this point. The secondaries are fun, but the splitter isn't being used as much as I thought. He just isn't pitching the way I thought he would pitch. And maybe that's an indication of, Ryan, it's just the first 5 spring outings. He's going to rebound. He's going to turn it on. It's going to dial up. But hey, time's ticking, right? It's March 8th as I'm recording this. It's going to be March 9th. He's not going to pitch on March 9th. He's got like 3-4 more appearances guaranteed before they're going to start making roster cuts. And that's where I do get a little concerned for Cade Winquist. I'm not sure he's going to make the roster. Whereas if you asked me at the start of spring, I would have told you, okay, the way they're talking about him, the way that Aaron Boone talks about him, the way that Brian Cashman talks about him, the way that his sinker was profiling, the way that his velocity looked as a minor leaguer, yeah, this guy should make the team. Velocity hasn't translated. The sinker has been good. Nothing else is translated. So this is a very, very curious situation. And just based on spring performance alone, just based on evaluating their stuff, I'm not sure you could justify putting Cade Winquist on the roster over one of Hedrick or Bird, especially, again, if you're trying to tell me that you're bringing your best 26 guys, especially in the division as competitive as the AL East. But we'll leave the bullpen topic at that. I want to get your thoughts in the comment section below. Let's move on real quick to Anthony Volpe, who talked about his progression, mentioned that he has gotten up to diving and swinging the bat. If you like these kinds of updates and these podcasts, quick 20-minute hitters, make sure you like and subscribe. If you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, leave a 5-star rating. But yeah, Volpe already swinging the bat, dry swings, diving, got cleared for diving. And it looks like a return is more likely in May than April. That's according to Mark W. Sanchez of the New York Post. Look, Anthony Volpe is in a very interesting spot going into this 2026 season because he's going to have to rebound from labrum surgery, but he's also going to have to prove to this fan base and to this organization that he is the shortstop that at least he showed in 24, where he was at least a good defensive shortstop who ran the bases well. Didn't really hit, but at least provided that and then hit in the postseason. Can he be that player? Is that the player that we're looking at? Because it's not sexy, but it's much better than what they got out of shortstop last year. And it's a question of whether that player is still in there because we're talking about rebounding from labrum surgery. We're talking about defense, which is very volatile on a year-to-year basis. We're talking about a player who, like, is the arrow going to go up or down on the offense? I don't really know, man. Like, I can't sit here and tell you that his offense won't get worse this upcoming season. Again, we've got to bake in the fact that he's coming back from labrum surgery, and I do think this is a do-or-die season for Anthony Volpe. He is in his second year of arbitration going into 2027. He will be in his second year of arbitration. It'll be more expensive for the Yankees to carry, and they've got Jose Caballero chomping at the bit to steal that job in 2026. George Lombard Jr. has had an awesome spring training. He's an excellent defensive shortstop who has shown a lot of upside and promise throughout his minor league career. He looks like somebody who could be ready in 2027. The Yankees are going to have free agent options. A guy like Nico Horner could become available this upcoming free agent class, and he's capable of playing shortstop. The reasons to not upgrade at shortstop if Volpe were to not have a good season would no longer exist. The Yankees had the crutch of, hey, Bo Bichette, don't think he's a shortstop. That's why we didn't sign him to play shortstop. There wasn't another readily available shortstop who changed teams who the Yankees could have acquired. They tried to acquire Corey Seager. Those talks didn't really go anywhere. So they have at least the protection, the cushion of, we didn't have anywhere else to go. Next year, that won't be the case. So if Anthony Volpe is not a productive shortstop this season, the feeling I get is that the organization will move on from him and that they will find other ways to get production at shortstop because they can't do another year where it's an 80 to 85 OPS plus and it's average at best defense with realistically a below average defensive outcome. I know defensive runs saved said he was barely above average. I'm sorry. I trust fielding run value a little bit more on this. I thought he was a negative defender at the position. He's got to turn it around. It's got to happen this year. Not saying he's got to be a stud, but I don't think you have to squint real hard to see a 90 to 95 OPS plus. 20 home runs, 20 steals, good defense at shortstop kind of player. We've seen him do these kinds of things at various points in his career. Can he put it all together? Is what I just described a sexy outcome? Is what I just described a star player? Is what I just described the kind of guy that you give a $100 million contract to? Absolutely not to all of those things. But what I did describe to you is about a 3 to 3.5 to maybe even a 4-win player. And that kind of player at shortstop, that kind of player on a championship contender is very valuable at a low cost at a position where you do not think you're going to get more production than what you did last year. Like, you really don't feel good about this position. And again, there's pressure. There's pressure on the major league roster. Again, Jose Caballero looks like a guy who could take that job. If you ask me, hey, right here, right now, who do you trust to give you a good at-bat in a big game? I'm going to trust Caballero a little bit more. He's got better swing decisions. He's shown a bit of more affinity for hitting the ball in the air to left field, pulling the ball. He's a phenomenal base runner. So if he does have a great at-bat and gets on base, he could do something for you on the bases. Volpe's got a lot to prove right now. And again, there's a guy that's not too far out, and George Lombard Jr. could be up maybe at the end of this year, but at the very least, think 2027 is on the table for him. There's pressure on Volpe, and I think he's going to have to show up or show out in 2026 for these New York Yankees, or I don't think he's going to be playing in New York after 2026. Maybe he'll play in New York, but just not for the Yankees. I do not believe that the Yankees can go through another year of this without actions, without changes, and again, looking at 2027, there is not going to be a reason to not add a shortstop because of the options available internally and externally as well. But again, I want to know what you guys think on Anthony Volpe. Where are you guys at with him? Because I think it's a bleak situation for Volpe, but there's still that pocket of opportunity. There's still that glimmer of hope. You know, I look at Dansby Swanson at the start of his career. I look at some catchers, guys at premium positions can struggle with the bat for the first few years and then just kind of find it. There are guys who have done that. maybe Volpe's that next guy. Maybe Volpe's the next guy to kind of find it. I, again, don't think he spent his entire career as a bad baseball player. He spent it as a bad hitter for sure. But I think he's going to have to find it now. The one example that I think is like the most fun to look at is Xander Bogaerts, because while he did have some really good years in 16 and in 15, in 2017, he was a 95 WRC plus guy. Like it can take some time for these premium position players at premium positions, to figure it out. We'll hope that Anthony Volpe is one of them. If not, again, don't know if it's happening in New York for much longer. Let's move on to the final subject here, and it's Elmer Rodriguez. He's pitching for Puerto Rico against Cuba tonight, and this is a big game for Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, of course, looking to try and stamp its ticket to the next round. Not everyone listening to this is going to care about the World Baseball Classic, but you should care about this start, regardless of whether you care about World Baseball Classic play or not. Regardless if you're rooting for Puerto Rico, rooting for Cuba, rooting for DR, rooting for Venezuela, rooting for Nicaragua, rooting for the United States, Canada, I don't care. If you're a Yankee fan, you should be paying attention to this game. Elmer Rodriguez is going to be pitching in San Juan, in Puerto Rico. I imagine his heart is going to be racing, or at least there's going to be some level of adrenaline here. How does he handle that? How does he handle the pressure of pitching in the national spotlight? Prime time in San Juan, 7 p.m. slate. That ballpark's going to be packed out for Puerto Rico the same way it was in the game that they walked off against Panama, their Game 2 victory. If they win this game, they're moving on to the knockout round. If they lose this game, now you're kind of leaving it up to fate. Now you got a do or die Game 4. So there's a lot of pressure riding on Elmer Rodriguez to deliver a strong start. Furthermore, if he stumbles in this outing and Puerto Rico loses, they're going to have a burnt bullpen. There are restrictions for how many pitches you can throw, and how many rest days are mandated if you throw a certain amount of pitches. So for Elmer Rodriguez, this is a big start in front of his home in Puerto Rico, in front of just thousands of fans who are going to be watching eagerly. So for the Yankees, why is this so important? Why is this a great situation to put Elmer in? Why do you care? You want to test what your 22-year-old starting pitcher in AAA, closest in proximity to the big leagues, what does he look like when all of these variables are at play? When he can push his team into the next round? When you see how much these players care about the WBC, and don't sit here and tell me, well, I don't care, so these guys shouldn't care. They do care. Whether you think they should or shouldn't, that's not part of the conversation. The conversation is they do care, that they are going to feel some semblance of pressure. Kike Hernandez, I know he's not playing for PR in this one because he's hurt, but he mentioned he's been in 5 World Series. He is a multi-time World Series champion. He said that the World Baseball Classic means more to him, that there's just an elevated status with him. He's not the only player to have said that. So I promise you that Elmer Rodriguez is going to be feeling some semblance of pressure. How does he react? How do the shapes look? How does the command look? How does the velocity look? How does the poise look? Against a Cuban lineup with some veterans. Look, Cuba is not a star-studded roster. Yoan Moncada is a current big leaguer, only active big leaguer on the position player side. Alexi Ramirez, former big leaguer, has been in the big leagues for a while. So, it's not like it's a star-studded lineup, but these are WBC veterans. These are guys who know how to hit in these games and know how to play in these international competitions. How Elmer Rodriguez responds, how he performs, is going to be a nice test for the Yankees. And even if he stumbles, a good teaching moment. This is an important data point. This is an important kind of, I don't know how to put it. I don't know if it's to say it's an important point in his career, but it's going to be a learning moment one way or another. If he pitches his tail off, whatever you found mentally to get yourself locked in, put it in a box and keep it, because you're going to need it when you get to the big leagues, when you get to the Bronx, and there are thousands of fans ready to judge you on just one pitch, 2 pitch, 1 start, 2 start, 3 start. Ask Will Warren how that felt. Ask Clark Schmidt how that felt. There's pressure in New York, and he's going to have to learn how to handle that. I think he's capable. I think his heartbeat can be slow. I think he's shown an ability to attack the zone. But again, can he do that for Puerto Rico? Because if he can, if you're the Yankees, you got to look at him and go, he might be more big league ready than we think. And I'm very curious to see how he participates, how he performs, how he does in this ball game. It's a big ball game, probably the biggest game he's ever pitched in his life. So I'm very excited to keep tabs on that, and you should as well. You might think this is pointless. I promise you it's not pointless to pay attention to your top pitching prospect, or at least your second best pitching prospect in the game of his life. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about all these things. I'm trying to do these like 20-minute podcasts solo, just myself, talking about the latest things in Yankee land, giving you guys the latest. I'm going to probably be dropping these in the mornings just to talk with you guys real quick before class or before whatever I've got going on during the day. We really do appreciate your support here on the Fireside Yankees page. I know we have not been streaming and we have not been providing those streams, and that's my way to interact with you guys, the fans. So I really do appreciate you still rocking with us despite it. Going to be coming back with some live stream content during the week. TBD on the dates, still figuring some stuff out, still got a lot going on in midterms week, and then we're going to Tampa the week after, so we'll do some live content there as well. We'll see you guys the next one. Have a great rest of your day. Peace out, everybody. Let's go Yankees.
Perfect.